Hello everybody, I am Ryan Matthew Harker and this is the Pocket Dimension. Today we're going to look at Phantom Force number 1 from Image Comics, created by the legendary Jack the King Kirby. Jack Kirby was known as a pioneer of creators' rights. He helped get better pay and royalties and overall just make the comics industry stand up and be accountable for the creators who helped, who they built their brands off the backs of. And he worked for Marvel Comics for a long time. He helped create the Fantastic Four, along with Stan Lee, I believe. Thor with Larry Lieber and Stan Lee. He helped create the Avengers and the Hulk and the X-Men, along with John Romita Sr. and Stan Lee. He also worked for DC, doing the Four Worlds saga, which featured the New Gods, Darkseid, Mr. Miracle, just to name a few. He helped create the Marvel method of creating comics. He inspired, generations of artists, and helped. He was just a force in the comics industry. And early on in Image's formation, this was December of '93. Image printed his Phantom Force series here. Well, at least an issue of it. I think. What was the name of the other company? Was it Eclipse Comics? No, that wasn't it. Dang it! Off the top of my head, I can't remember the name of the other comics. Phantom Force was co-created with Michael Thibodeau and Richard French, and I believe they had another comics imprint that they printed Phantom Force afterwards. But what's cool about the first issue of Phantom Force from Image is that the Image founders and then some all took turns inking over Kirby's pencils for this issue. There was Rob Liefeld, who inked the cover of this, Todd McFarlane, Jim Lee, Mark Silvestri, Eric Larson, Scott Williams, Jerry Ordway, and Danny Meeke all helped to, ink this comic book. And so it's fun to go through this and, kind of see the differences in the inking styles over this, iconic legend of the comics industry. Which honestly, if I'm being honest, I don't really have an eye for who's inking what. A lot of times, I read through this several times trying to decipher it on my own, and I just couldn't quite figure it out. Except for there was a couple pages I think that Eric Larson inked, and the couple that Todd McFarlane's style really jumps out at me for some reason. But honestly, I had to Google it to see who inked what page, and then I'd read this a couple times, didn't realize that on the back page is the inking credits. So it says, everyone that inked it and what page they inked it. And I was just like, oh man, you fucking dummy. Of course, it's all right there. So, but we'll do a little flip through here, and we'll just kind of take a peek at the pages, and we'll see the different inking styles. So again, Rob Liefeld inks issue 1, or the cover here of issue 1, and as we get into it, Danny Miki is the inker on page 1 here, which just looking at it, I love Danny's inks. He does a lot of great stuff. He worked doing a lot of the inks in Extremes books, and he's just such a good artist. His inks are just incredible, and he did a lot of laid down a lot over Greg Capullo on Spawn, and I did a video here last night that where he inked over Brian Denham in Violator versus Badrock, and at least some of the pages. And I don't know, I just think he really brings a lot to the table when he's inking. It's nice, it's good work. And you can see on this page here, like it like adds to the dynamicism of Kirby's pencils without really just detracting from it. And I don't know, this is a good first splash page. Looks great. So over here to pages 2 and 3. These are both inked by Eric Larson, and looking at these, you can I could tell that they were Larson style. I mean, he gets these fat ink lines here, which I think really just kind of lends to his inking style. I don't know, it's kind of, it makes his characters a little blocky, which honestly kind of goes along with Jack Kirby's pencil, his art style. Honestly, like, I think that out of everybody, Eric Larson inks over Jack Kirby as good as Joe Sano does, or almost anybody else that has inked Jack Kirby over the years. I would love to see some recreations of some of Kirby's iconic books, some of his Fantastic Four run, or his other work, his Four Worlds stuff for DC with Eric Larson as the inker. I think it would be pretty awesome to see that. So anyway, moving on, we'll go to pages 4 and 5 here. We've got Jim Lee inks 4, which just looking at this, now that I know it's Jim Lee, it makes sense to me, but just looking at it before, I couldn't tell you who the inker was. And then 5 is Danny again, and again, like, even though his style looks great, like, I couldn't pick it out of the crowd over Kirby's work, because I don't know, I just couldn't do it. So then we'll go to the first page here. In the second chapter is this is Scott Williams, and Scott Williams is an iconic inker in the industry, but really, again, I think his name is more attached to people, Jim Lee being a big one, and so when I look at his work, over someone, with such a distinct style as Jack Kirby. Like, I'm not going to be able to look at this page and go, oh yeah, that's Scott Williams. I'm looking at this page and going like, oh yeah, this is Jack Kirby. So I guess that might be a credit to Scott Williams inks, where he's able to lay down the ink without detracting from Jack's style. But anyway, so next we got Jerry Ordway, which Jerry Ordway, I think he's most popular in my mind anyway as doing art for Superman. He was a big part of the Death of Superman books, which, growing up as a kid, I mean, that was a big deal for me. Like, the Death of Superman, at least, like the first time he died. that whole run is just incredible. I love it. I've got the trade paperback of it at home, and it's one of my all-time favorite stories. I mean, it was really like my first introduction to DC Comics, and like a lot of DC's stuff I wasn't a big collector of as a kid. I think now as an adult that I collect more of it, but like that storyline, like, I mean, it spanned like all of the iconic stuff, and I loved it. But I think Jerry's stuff, again, I can't say that I could have picked it out, but looking at it, like, I do love his flavor over Kirby's pencils. Like, it's so nice. So next we've got, again, Danny Miki. And now, now that I know who's doing things, and now that I'm looking at it more, like, I can see it, see his stuff here, his line work. Definitely him. And again, we've got Eric Larson here on this page. And, again, I think this is a page I picked out, where I was like, oh yeah, that looks like Eric Larson, because he's just got this kind of rough, kind of blocky ink style that it's hard to mistake. And, at least for me. So, and then we jump over to this page here, and this is Mark Silvestri. And, looking at it, when I first went through the book, yeah, I didn't know. I'd like to say now that I'm looking at it and I know, but, I didn't know before, and, I can see some of his line work here, though. And I think mostly, like, the reason why I couldn't tell was Mark Silvestri didn't do a lot of his own inks. He had Dan Green doing his stuff with X-Men and Wolverine. And I think Scott Williams, did Scott Williams pick up a lot of his inks on Cyberforce? God, now that I'm trying to think about it, I can't remember. I'm going to have to pull out some issues of Cyberforce and see, who's doing his inks. So that's Silvestri. And then we jump over to, here's the page I absolutely knew who this was, Todd McFarlane. Because Todd just spreads his flavor all over, and you can tell that Todd McFarlane inked this. And it's kind of this weird amalgamation of Jack Kirby and Todd McFarlane. Like, I don't know exactly how he did it, but Todd, like, really made this page his own, like, you look at it and you're immediately like, that's Todd McFarlane. So, again, kind of, I don't know. It's a little heavy on the Todd, when you look at it. I don't know if I looked at this, if I would, without knowing that it was Jack Kirby drawing it, that I would go immediately like, oh, yeah, that's Jack Kirby. Because Todd just, he Todd's it up. Next page is Erik Larsen again, and again it's Larsen-esque. And then we jump over here, and this is Marc Silvestri. Wait, oh, I'm losing track of my notes here. This is McFarlane, Larsen. This is Jerry Ordway. So I was gonna say that's not Silvestri, but so this is Jerry Ordway again. Which going from this page to this page at a glance, like there's not much of a difference, but when you start delving deeper into it, you see Ordway has smoother lines than smoother and more connected lines than Erik Larsen, because that's another thing with Larsen, where he does a lot of line breaks in his work, and I think that really points out like his stuff when he's doing it. And then this one is Scott Williams, and yeah, I don't know. This page is pretty bland, honestly. And then we get over to this page, and this is Silvestri again. And again, this page is kind of bland too. Kind of like this shot right here. You can kind of see a good amalgamation of Silvestri and Kirby stuff together. But yeah, I don't know. Maybe it's like because there's not a lot going on with the backgrounds in either of these pages. It kind of makes it go meh. But and then we got Scott Williams again over here. A lot of stuff going on. I think Williams kind of he keeps it Kirby a little bit, but Kirby's kind of got that blocky style too, which I think that's part of the reason why I believe Erik Larsen does so well with it. Because they're something about their two unique styles. Kind of they mesh well together. But anyway, here's Williams, and then Rob Liefeld, and again Rob Liefeld was one that I was able to go, I think that's Rob Liefeld. And the only reason I even hesitated was because, Rob, I believe, was heavily influenced by Todd McFarlane. And so, like, his ink work and his rendering, even though it still had that Rob Liefeld flair, it spoke of Todd McFarlane. And like, if you look at this at a glance, you could see some in the rendering, like, oh yeah, it's kind of McFarlane-esque. But no, this page is Rob Liefeld, and the next page is also Rob Liefeld. So yep, both Rob Liefeld. Anyway, and then we've got another McFarlane page, which boom, all of a sudden you look at this and like I'm like, oh yeah, that's definitely Todd McFarlane. I can totally see that. So, again, Todd just kind of steps all over Jack Kirby's pencils, and he's like, nope, this is Todd's page now. And then the last page here, Danny Meeke. And again, now that I'm looking at it, I know I can see that it's him, in relation to like what I know previously was his. So, and then we got Freak Force ad, and a couple pinups. We got a Ginseng pinup here, and that's with Erik Larsen. And these ones are actually, they tell you who it is, Jack Kirby and Erik Larsen. And it's fun to see. Like, I don't know, you look at it and it's like, man, I really like Larsen's inks over Jack Kirby's pencils. Like, man, they should. Yeah, I think Jack Kirby's passed away now, but like, I really think that it would have been great if they had done a full book together. Like, really. And then this last page is Jim Lee over Kirby. And honestly, like, I think that this pinup is pretty fucking awesome, because Jim Lee's inks kind of softens, you know, some of Kirby's stuff, but at the same time, he really stays true to the pencils with like the blacks, and you know, I really like this. This is a sweet pinup. So yeah, and then there's a bunch of you know, copy from the inkers, you know, who they talk about, you know, their love of Jack Kirby, and you know, their, you know, how much they are, you know, it means to them to be able to, you know, work with him and, you know, collaborate in this way. So we got Rob Liefeld, Todd McFarlane, Jim Lee, Jim Valentino, Eric Larson, and then here's Michael Thibodeau, and who, you know, helped create Phantom Force with Kirby, Jerry Ordway, you know, Steve Oliff, who Ollie Optics. He was the colorist here. I didn't even really get into that, but we had colors were Steve Oliff and Ollie Optics. You know, so, and then Kurt Hathaway, who did the letters, and Al Gordon. Al Gordon worked a lot with Jerry Ordway, and I'm not seeing that he really contributed to the book from the credits here. But, I mean, you really can't have Jerry Ordway without Al Gordon. So, and, you know, I read this book, and it was fun. Here's a Matsuda picture with the Repman inks, looks like. Who's that? Oh, Newman. I never did get into that. But, and then a little book review, The Art of Jack Kirby. So, yeah, I gotta say, I mean, the story was fun. It was, you know, plots and pencils by Jack Kirby, and the script, Jack Kirby, Michael Thibodeau, and Richard French. And, you know, I did keep my eye out. I looked on eBay, and I'm going to keep my eye out. I'm going to try to grab some more of these because, you know, I'd like to see where the story's going. And yeah, once I do, I will share with you guys on the YouTube, and you know, we can go through this journey together. So anyway, I am Ryan Matthew Harker, and this is the Pocket Dimension. You can find my my comic books and my books that I've written, comics I've created, books I've written on Amazon if you search for my name, me, Ryan Matthew Harker. And also you can go to my Square store, which is the Pocket Dimension store at square.site, right? Yeah, so it'll be spelled out. That's the hyphen pocket hyphen dimension hyphen store.square.site. That's the hyphen pocket hyphen dimension hyphen store.square.site. And you know, I will have links to both those places in you know, below the video. And I'd like to end this by saying, you know, create more comics, read more comics, and share more comics. Thank you. Have a nice day.